starting with Ward 1, do test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Ooh. Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
That's you.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Test 4, 5, 6.
Test 7, 8, 9.
And that's why you're on that side of the horseshoe.
Could you?
Testing 1, 2, 3. And I will say that the new system works really well. We're still working out some of the bugs, so we've got staff here to take care of that. But if you guys could help, and I know you've heard this a dozen times, the closer you get to the mic, the better you talk into it, the better the system picks you up. We can only enhance it so much. So for live streaming YouTube and what's recorded and put on the city website, if you can talk into the mic, that helps us a ton. We appreciate it. Yeah, if you turn it on, that helps sometimes too, yeah.
All right, we good to go?
Yes, not one of them put what they were talking. They put their names on there, but not the list.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to July 23rd edition of the Midwest City Council, and call this meeting to order. Ask that Assistant City Manager Von Sullivan offer the invocation, and the pledge will be led by Councilman Moore. Please stand.
And for your information, you sound much better to us out in the audience. Thanks to whoever led that project. I'd ask you to bow with me, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day that we've been blessed with, Lord. We thank you for these cooler temperatures that we're enjoying today. And Father, we just ask your blessing be upon this meeting, the activities of this evening. Father, I thank you for this council and their willingness to serve and represent their constituents and the citizens who live in this city. Father, I ask that your discernment and wisdom be upon them and give them peace and comfort in the decisions they make tonight. Father, we thank you for this great city, state, and nation that we enjoy. We are blessed people. We take that for granted, and we ask that you be with those who are guaranteeing this great nation's freedom. They're serving all over the world tonight, both foreign and abroad. We ask that you be with them and their families. We ask that you comfort them and give them safety. Father, we thank you so much for the ultimate example we have of service and sacrifice that you gave for us by sending your Son to the cross. Thank you for that sacrifice, and we ask all these favors in your Son's holy name. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, again, welcome everyone. We'll now go into the community-related announcements. We've got several. Ms. Eads, you want to kick us off?
Is the next edition of Family Flicks in Town Center. I have that at 7 o'clock. And there'll be a subsequent one on September 6th, also at 7 o'clock in Town Center in the Charles Johnson Park area there. It's the only thing I have.
Okay. Mr. Lyons, go ahead, and then I'll finish up.
Okay. We have September 2nd is Doggy Paddle. September 12th is Picnic with Protectors and Public Works Professionals, which will be at Regional Park. October 5th is the Mid-America Street Fest and the Midwest Art Festival. And watch for more details on our website. October 26th is Trick or Treat City. And finally, tune in tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. on Channel 4 to see one of our firefighters, Toby Shores, being honored for as an everyday hero. Toby has an airplane, and he has been flying a patient back and forth to MD Anderson, a young patient, a child that's being treated there. So being recognized for that and some other charitable work that they've been doing for another firefighter. So tune in for that.
Does anyone else have anything?
Well, yes, Sharing a Vision Youth Leadership Summit, that is Thursday, July the 25th, and it's going to be at the Midwest City Community Center from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. I encourage all of the parents to bring their youth from 13 to 17. It is going to be a great leadership summit. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to kind of put a plug in for a program we're going to try to kick off on August 17th. We're going to have an organizational meeting at Charles Johnson Building on 15th Street at 9 o'clock in the morning. The reason for this is to bring all the faith-based and civic organizations together under one umbrella to help us meet some needs of our community. Every year when we do code enforcement and other initiatives throughout the city, we find folks that either due to physical disability or financial issues, they're not able to do some of the routine maintenance around their homes. And we have a huge gap in being able to provide for that. So what I'm doing, myself and council are reaching out to the faith-based and civic community to maybe meet those needs. So if you represent an organization that may be wanting involved, to be involved in that, or know of someone that wants to be involved in that, please have them come to that meeting. And hopefully we'll be able to get this program off the ground before the end of summer. So thank you for your indulgence. Is there anything else on community-related announcements? If not, we'll go ahead and get into our regular agenda. We'll start off with the consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the council, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of all council or members of the audience wish to discuss an item, be removed and heard in regular order. Chair to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Mr. Mayor, does that include the discussion items?
No, this is just a consent agenda, Mr. Bridges.
Thank you.
I'll give you a holler when it's your time to come up.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Move into our first discussion item.
Item 1, PC 2002, public hearing with discussion and consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from R6 single-family detached residential to C4 general commercial, and a resolution to amend the comprehensive plan from LDR low-density residential to COMM commercial for the property described as part of the northeast quarter of Section 25, Township 12 North, Range 2 West, and further described as the north 115 feet of the parcel addressed at 9622 Northeast 23rd. Mr. Harless.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Yes, this parcel was annexed into Midwest City many years ago under the R1D zoning district, just as many other parcels in the northeast part of the city. Over the years, the building closest to Northeast 23rd Street has been used for various non-conforming commercial purposes, even though the zoning was not appropriate. The residential structure behind the commercial building has been used as a residence. The applicant has asked staff about using the commercial building for medical marijuana dispensary or grow facility. The applicant is requesting to rezone the north 115 feet of the property to C4 in order to come into conformance for future commercial use. The remainder of the lot is to remain R6, single-family detached residential, so that the existing structure may be continued to be used as such. No variances are requested and no public improvements are required with this application. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval. Be glad to answer any questions.
Is it one or two lots now, or is it all just one lot?
It's one lot.
So you're not requiring them to separate the lots?
Not for the zoning, no, sir.
You will at some point before they can operate?
No.
So they continue to just have a residential, the residence behind it and the commercial? all
Well,
one lot?
that was, it's non-conforming existing use when it was brought in, and so it's been non-conforming and used over the years for commercial. But when they wanted to go outside the existing uses, and especially with the new zoning laws with medical marijuana use, that's when we bring it forth to bring it into as conformance as we can. But they would not be able to sell off the back parcel. If they were ever wanting to sell off that back portion, we would require them to plat it or subdivide it at that time.
Now, is there a house behind there or not?
Yes.
So there's a house, residence is being lived in,
Right.
and business, and it'll remain as all as one lot?
Yes.
Okay. Billy, I'm confused. So how, if it's already zoned residential and they go to sell it, are you gonna require them to come in and address it at that time? I'm confused.
So if they ever wanted to sell the residence,
Uh-huh.
they could either sell it with the commercial property all as one lot. We would not, they couldn't sell separating the lot because it's not a separate lot. So if they ever wanted to separate that lot out, it would have to be brought into conformance for both the commercial property and the residential property would have to be brought into conformance to the best that they could. And so that would require them to lot split that or subdivide that at that time.
So historically, we haven't made applicants go ahead and split the lot on previous applications like this?
When usually, if that's happened, it's because they're wanting to sell. For example, if somebody wanted to buy that whole back part of that long lot and they wanted to keep the commercial, they would be wanting to sell off the back part. And so we'd have to create a lot at that time for them to separate that and sell it.
But as I understand the request now, there's gonna be a dispensary and a grow facility on the front part of the lot closest to 23rd Street,
It's
right?
dispensary, isn't it?
Dispensary is what they've asked for
Yeah.
initially.
It's just a dispensary.
Okay, I must have misunderstood. I thought you said there was also a grow facility that they were requesting.
They were talking about a grow facility, but this is just be zoned for,
Be zoned for growth, C4 allows growth.
yeah.
So we could
It would be
have
both. It would be
growth
both.
on that lot with a residential space right behind it.
Yes. So the only area that would be permitted in would be in this case, the hatched red area.
I mean, if it's non-conforming, what would make it, you said it's always been non-conforming, what would be where it's conforming?
Well, they're trying to bring it into conformance now by zoning it to C4. It was non-conforming when it was brought into the city and just annexed in that way. So there was an existing house back there, and then it was just brought in that way. It was never subdivided at that time.
So why isn't a lot split, sorry?
Why
Required
are they
almost.
not?
Yeah.
They're not requesting to sell off part of the parcel or anything. It's an existing lot with a house back there. We have these. I mean, they're not building it now. It's an existing lot with those existing structures.
What if he wanted to build another building behind the house and then another one behind that?
So, we would make them bring it into conformance.
So gesture for me if you would, or if you can, everything that's immediately proximate to the area of request, because it looks like to me there's residential across the street. Is that accurate? On the opposite side of
You have the
23rd?
land use map up there.
Sorry.
Mobile home park.
Yeah, it's mobile home park, so yeah, there's, you can see from, it's R6, so it's surrounding part of it, and then it's mobile home park on part of it.
Okay. And across the street, there's one C1, so that's a commercial lot, catty corner.
Right.
And then behind that is residential also, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
What's the width of the lot line?
It's a little over 100 feet.
And the big square that's R6, that's just south of the gray area, that's a salvage yard. That's also something that's non-conforming, but they haven't ever done anything different than a salvage yard. So if they did come to us and ask to do something different, we would be in the same process with that parcel too, making them come into conformance.
But when we know they're non-conforming, as long as they don't do anything to change what is on the property, we don't make them come into conformance. Is that right?
Considered legal non-conforming.
It's 165 feet wide.
How wide is the building?
I don't know how wide the building is.
So that is, now how far is the residential, excuse me, how far is the residential, area? Is it, a large residence off in this particular area?
I don't know how many, is the applicant here?
I don't see the applicant. Oh, yes. This is the applicant.
Yeah, the applicant may be able to answer how large the residence is.
Building at the time they start building it out, as far as all the requirements, they have to go through everything.
They'll go through the CO process, yes.
And then there's a lot of buildings where it's a good time to have them updated, get the building up to code where it looks nice. It seems like we've got, I think in one place, I don't want to say out loud, but, now that his business is open, it's going to be here another, 10 to 30 years, and it looks like it was built 50 years ago. It seems like a good time that if we want to get something more, improved or look nicer on our major arterial streets, it's a good time to try to get that done. Not be the time and place is better.
Well, at the
So
CO
what-
process, we will require them to bring up to any codes that's required for them for an occupancy. But right now, we don't go back into an existing building and make them do.
So it's
facade
not typical to have a mixed use, we're zoning it commercial on the front side and still leaving it R6 in the back?
Yes,
That's not typical, is it?
it's not untypical. There's some examples up there on the screen right there that aren't too dissimilar. But then
I'm sorry.
these old developed properties along major arterials, back when they were the county, that's just how they were done.
Do we have an
So-
applicant for this one, Billy, or no?
I think he just walked in. Is this yours? Yes. You might approach so he can answer some questions.
So Billy, what I'm hearing is this property was annexed in a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
At that time, we didn't make them get it up to code or come into compliance. This is the first time since it came into Midwest City, and now we are.
Yes, and
Is
it's
that
because they're changing, they're requesting something so different than what was there, permitted there before, and that's usually when we get them.
And we've done this in the past, so this isn't something that's, on this particular type of property, a legal non-conforming.
There was
Yes.
We've
a
done this in the past.
There was a
Yes.
gas station that you all heard about this time last year at 10th and Post, that they needed their liquor license to be able to sell the High Point beer, but they were zoned residential. And they'd been a gas station for years and operated fine, but they needed that license that said they were okay with zoning. So we required them to come through this process and be rezoned so that we could
Well,
write
that-
that letter.
But they weren't a
That
lot
didn't have
split,
a house
right?
behind
Where
it.
it was like residential on the back end and the gas station on the front end?
No, that was just a gas station
Right.
was the only thing.
So this is a totally different deal, is it's got a house on the back side of it and it's still a residential
So
area.
let me, I just want to interject something based off of what we did a council meeting ago. There's an area that we're looking at having to do with curb cuts and sidewalks. And one of the things that we said, and I think later on, we'll probably have the same thing will be said, because I think there's another one coming up tonight, was if we're looking to change things, this applicant has done everything right according to how we've done business. We shouldn't throw roadblocks if he wasn't expecting. If we want to change things, we should change it going forward and not hold this guy to standards that we haven't set forth yet. That's kind of what we did with the sidewalks and the curb cuts a meeting or two ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree totally. I mean, it's the same scenario, but I understand your point.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree that this isn't something that should be looked at and maybe changed. But I believe that it puts an undue burden on this gentleman who's done everything that he said that he had to do to get here tonight, to change how we're going to do things going forward.
Yeah, but they have a business and a residential and, if he was building new, I'd like Billy to go through all the hoops you'd have to go through if you wanted to come in and build both of these properties new.
But he's not doing that.
Yeah, but we do have areas where this is permissible, that we have permitted things. You just take, that they're on 29th Street, in our depot where was it the Slosky's with the Cinnabon, and then the apartments up above. It's not uncommon, and we have other areas in the community where you have commercial on the front and residential in the rear. You can go up and down the street, and there's several cases of this. So, just so I understand, if we were looking to go forward and change something, what would it be that we would you'd want staff to look at changing?
And this is just a zoning request. He's gonna have to come into compliance with code and everything else to put in a grow facility. Is that correct? Before he gets a CO?
Yes, it'll get the inspections by our inspectors and also by the fire department. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but for me, that's a big concern. I'm sorry, it just is. I mean, you're talking about having a grow facility on this property with residential mixed with it as opposed to a Cinnabon that has an apartment above it. I mean, they're different animals. There may be a commercial intent to it, but they're still different animals.
Well, and I'm concerned that it's 165 feet wide. The building's gonna hide most of what's going on. You got residents back there. You pull up on the side. I just, maybe I'm over concerned, but, and then you have a building that's like the other one I'm thinking of. It's gonna be here for the next 40 years, and it may look like a 40-year-old building.
This is a public hearing and discussion. Is the applicant in the room? Is the applicant in the room?
I'm sorry, sir.
Please approach the podium and state your name and address, please.
My name is Godfrey Woodia, 9622 Northeast 23rd Street, Oklahoma City, 73141.
What's your intent to do with this building? What's your overall goal?
So we acquired our building in about 2003, and I was a counselor. We used it for about 2 years, then we went out of business. Then we rented it as a restaurant. It didn't function. Ever since then, the building has been empty. So we're just paying mortgage on empty building. And I have lived here in Midwest City for 22 years. And the building we're not using it for anything. We get people trying to rent it month after month. When they come to the city will say, you cannot use it for this, you cannot use it for that. Then later, I talked to this nice lady. He said we should rezone it. Now they said it's qualified for a restaurant, it's qualified for counseling, but it's not qualified for marijuana dispensary. I said, why? They said it was grandfathered. I'm not a lawyer. I said, if it's grandfathered for one thing, why can't it be grandfathered for every other thing? They said, no, it doesn't work that way.
Well, your argument doesn't hold water, and we're not grandfathering anything. We're
Yes, sir.
talking about rezoning a piece of property and going forward. So So your intent is to open up a marijuana dispensary there?
Yes, sir. To rent it, yes, sir.
And what's your future intent? I've heard grow facility mentioned.
Sir?
That's not your intent?
Yes, it is.
It is. And you know the requirements, all the code requirements that you're going to have to comply with to do that, right?
Yes, sir.
What's your intent to do with the house on the backside of the property?
That one is a tenant, and she doesn't have any problem with it. The house behind the property is occupied, and the current occupant doesn't have any problem with it.
Is there any further discussion or questions of this gentleman?
I make a motion to approve this.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed.
Roll call vote.
Let's do a roll call vote then.
Okay. Ward 1? No. 2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4?
Yes. There's no three here.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry.
4?
Yes.
5?
Yes.
More?
No.
Mayor?
No.
So is
All right.
What happens?
Motion carries.
Is it? No? I don't think a 3-3 does.
Oh.
3-3, we don't have a.
So can we maybe reconsider one thing here real quick? Because I do always think, this is in Espy's ward, correct? Can I undo mine? And we table this until Espy's back in 2 weeks? She should have say in this if it's in her ward. Or if we already voted and I thought about this too late?
The motion dies.
I think it's too late. I'll defer to the city attorney.
Billy, can they reapply if
They-
it's a 3?
Yeah, they can reapply, and my understanding would be just that the motion didn't pass, so you could make another motion. That's the way I've always understood it.
I believe you have to wait 6 months to reapply.
6
Can we-
months.
Can we make another motion to undo the motion that I thought about too late?
You have a
Yeah.
Well,
tie.
it died, so.
Well, you shouldn't have been so quick to jump out there.
I know.
There's no take-backs.
I think we could put it back on the agenda without having to reapply. Are you wanting to do that?
Well, I think it needs to be the will of the council, which is weird because we're now tied. I have no clue if we tie again what exactly happens.
Well, basically, the tie is a denial, because, I mean,
But if 3 of us want to put it back and 3 of us don't, where do we go from that point?
He reapplies in 6 months.
Okay, so do we have to have another motion to put it on for next, or do we have to do nothing and it just comes upon for next?
I don't believe you'd have to do a motion to have it be put back on the agenda.
Would or would not?
You would not. You would simply put it back on the agenda,
I didn't think you could withdraw it after
Next
you voted
council.
on it.
yeah.
I didn't think you could withdraw it after you voted on it. I mean, we already cast a vote, we already declined it. So, I mean, is it the only thing for him to do is to reapply? Because the vote stands as a
Who
decline.
would be the tiebreaker?
There's not a tiebreaker because we have 6 people. The city manager can't vote.
Oh, you may need to look at this.
We'll have to get back to you and let you know if we can present it to the city council, if you'll need to reapply in 6 months.
Reapply in 6 months?
Wait, I don't,
Well, wait.
I'm
No.
sorry, I don't know that, I'm not sure that you understand. She's not saying you have to reply in 6 months. What she's saying is she's got to look into it to see if you can be put on the next council agenda, or if you have to wait for 6 months to reapply. She's unsure at this point.
She's going to research and she'll know tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
No pressure. Yeah.
And if there's any questions that we may have that we can answer before then, we'd be certainly glad to get with the applicant to do that. Or maybe if the grow facility is the issue, the applicant might consider just doing the dispensary. Just as suggestions.
And is the person that's renting from you, is he going to come in and make it look more modern? Because I think that was one of Jeff's concerns, was how it might look 30 years from now. So if you know if the tenant's gonna come in and maybe make it look prettier, that might alleviate some concerns also.
But the tenant?
Yes.
The tenant doesn't have, she knows that,
I thought you said you were gonna rent the building out to a dispensary.
no.
No.
I did not say that, please.
Okay.
I said we are trying to rent the building for marijuana dispensary.
Okay.
The tenant behind the building is separate from the building itself.
Understand. I misunderstood you.
Okay, sir, the city attorney will be getting back in touch with you on your further course of action. Thank you for being here, we appreciate
And
it.
I'm making no more motions tonight.
Good idea.
I'll do it for you.
All right, next discussion item.
Item 2, PC 2003, discussion and consideration of approval of the proposed final plat of the Roller Lot described as part of the Northwest Quarter, Section 36, Township 12 North, Range 2 West, addressed as 9401 East Cardinal Place.
Yes, sir. The preliminary plat was approved in May 2019. Waivers for public improvements were required with the preliminary plat, as no new development is proposed with this application. They're dividing, the plat divides it into 7.8 acres and 1 acre with an existing house on the 1 acre. As the applicant meets all the requirements of the subdivision regulations and is consistent with approved preliminary plat, staff and planning commission recommend approval.
I have a question. Does the subdivision have an HOA associated with it?
It does not.
Which they're just doing one lot right now.
It's the existing house. The owner wanted to buy, the renter wanted to buy the house and separate it from the parent tract. And so this is just to divide that out from, there's an oil well on the other tract.
So the bridge with water and sewer, is sewer on both the?
Yeah, there's waivers on that. Go ahead and.
Yeah, Mr. Moore, there was waivers associated with it. There's no adjacent water, sewer to this property. They're on the individual system right now. That would stay as is.
So water's further into that whole way or whatever?
Yes, sir.
You know, Susan, on the HOA, the city ordinance kicks in, of course. Do we, are y'all wanting an HOA on every lot split or?
My question was just going to, Jeff, if there was an HOA, to make sure that the city attorney was reviewing the HOAs, I think has become the current practice. So if we were going to be asked, I understand they want to split the acre lot off, but they want to address the subdivision on the other side, and there was an HOA to make sure that that was occurring, so we have that issue reviewed.
Any further discussion or questions? Chair to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any third discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention. Motion carries. I think that time, right? Next discussion item.
Item 3, PC 2004, public hearing with discussion and consideration of an ordinance to redistrict from C3 Community Commercial to SPUD Simplified Plan Unit Development governed by the C3 Community Commercial and I-1 Light Industrial District, subject to staff comments for the property addressed at 1701 South Air Depot Boulevard.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Arliss.
This structure is a multi-tenant commercial building and uses allowable in C3 community commercial zoning districts such as Billy Sims Barbecue, a tanning salon, and Fred's Pharmacopoeia, a medical marijuana dispensary. Earlier this year, staff became aware that the owner of Fred's Pharmacopoeia had applied for a state license for the use of medical marijuana processing. The property is zoned C3 community commercial, which does not allow the use of medical marijuana processing. The Midwest City Council adopted an ordinance creating the use of medical marijuana processing and setting forth the allowable zoning districts for the use, which is I-1 light industrial or I-2. Upon being notified the property was not zoned for medical marijuana processing, the applicant met with staff to begin the process of applying to amend the zoning to allow medical marijuana processing. The applicant has stated that no more than 1,000 square feet of the existing building will be used for processing. If any more space is needed in the future, the SPUD will need to be amended. Staff would recommend that, if approved, the Planning Commission and Council note that in their motion that the only I-1 light industrial use allowed on the property would be noted and reported as medical marijuana processing. Be glad to answer any questions.
Is applicant here?
So if we do this, any marijuana dispensary that wants to come in and start processing in there, so long as they follow through with this, they can?
As long as they go through with the zoning, yes. And we could put requirements.
Everyone's got to be zoned individually. Then if we're going to do that, rezoned to this I-1 light industrial.
Yes, and I know that in our discussions when we were talking about appropriate zoning districts, when staff was doing research along with the fire departments, some other departments around the country, talking about some of the concerns about the processing, and so we intentionally set the zoning districts up so that we would have a chance to review them individually on the processing.
So it has to be rezoned to what, I see?
In this case, I-1.
Light industrial.
Because if we allow them for processing, then that would also allow in an instance like this where they could be doing the stuff that's a lot more complicated. We realize that a joint roller and a magical butter machine, although it's harmless, if it's zoned for processing, then that could open up the door to the natural gas processors and those type of things that has caused some concerns around the country.
So is this a slippery slope we open to get bigger and bigger processing closer to residential neighborhoods? One of the things that we talked about when we originally did all of our zoning was to keep processing out of a residential neighborhood. And while this is a Butts Air Depot, there's also houses right behind it. And I am going to
Yes, sir.
tell you, I am very pro 788. So if who's the applicant? Okay, I'm very pro 788, but I'm not sure how pro I am on putting processing in and amongst the neighborhoods. When we originally, our rules that we wrote about a year ago had put them in a separate place in the city.
Well, and this is my ward, in fairness, and again, I emphasize what Sean has just pointed out, which is there is plenty of residential property right behind where this designated area of request is. So, love to hear from the applicant, but I'm asking the council
Sir, you
to
want to
carefully
come down
consider
to the
that
podium
fact.
and please state your name and address and address the council.
My name is Bay Woods. The address is 1701 South Air Depot Boulevard, number 4. We are the Fred's Pharmacopoeia Emporium, is a C corporation. We are applying to do light processing within the confines of our structure. This does not involve any large-scale pressurized vessels or any flammable materials. This is no more complicated than a coffee shop or a pizza restaurant, in that there's some baking, there is some very, very simple extraction techniques, and also the ability to repackage our products. And so at this point, and as laws currently are, we are unable to even put products in paper or repackage any of these things, which creates a lot of waste and lowers any potential profits that we could have from that. And so I feel like it's a practical thing to consider, to separate out potentially the light processing and the heavy processing, which are very, very different things in scale, electrical requirements, and many other concerns.
So where's the line drawn, Billy, between light, heavy, or medium processing? Do we look up one day and as technology improves, all of a sudden we now have medium processing. Again, I'm pro 788, but I have a problem with this being in a neighborhood when we specifically carve those areas out.
Sure,
Yeah,
but I still feel that there should be a definition set in place to differentiate between this light processing, which is
But
essentially,
what's that definition? Is there an industry
That's
standard?
me.
well, not in
I
Oklahoma.
did ask you, Billy.
Not in Oklahoma, there isn't, but it is separated in other places, different categorizations.
So if we do, Billy, this is directed at you, if we do, say we say yes to this applicant, what are we opening up 6 months or a year down the road if he wants to, he said
It
there's no
changes.
definition in Oklahoma really between light processing and heavy processing.
Part of the way we ended up here, reviewing this was that we went back and looked at the state law and it talked about what some of the processing was. Staff shares some of your same concerns, and that's why we had them submit into, for our review and to make record as to what is that they're wanting to do as far as light processing. And so although we don't go and inspect a building every year, the fire department certainly does, and they would be aware of anything that changed dramatically from what's being shown here, and they would. Now, it makes it difficult to enforce, but if they start changing the processing very, very much, because that
So
would
if
mean
we do this, we're putting an additional burden on the fire department going forward as well, because they're now gonna have to go and inspect something different than what they were inspecting beforehand.
Okay, I'd like to hear from the chief on this one, in fairness, since we're going to bring the fire department into this issue.
Ask you a question.
Bet you didn't know you were going to get called up here tonight for this kind of question.
Not about marijuana, I'm not prepared for that, sorry. To answer some of the questions, though, we do, annual inspections are required every year, so we go in and do annual inspection. We do have a list that when we do the certificate of occupancy of what the occupancy's been classified as and what they're selling, so they do make notes, and anything that we find a discrepancy that deviates from the original inspection, we do reach out to Billy's group and let them know what's going on, what we found at the time.
So let me just jump into this, though. At present, do we have any fire personnel that have received any type of special training dealing with this light, medium, heavy, hot processing, any of the above with regard to marijuana?
Probably self-taught education we have, because this is obviously, we've done some different facility inspections already. I mean, we have a couple in play now on Air Depot in an industrial area, but I mean, we have studied to understand the difference between what he's talking about, the pressurized, vats or pots that they'll use to extraction. We do understand those processes right now, yes.
Okay, so we have some other processing facilities already in place in the city, is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And obviously occupancy inspections have been done on those, but probably not a subsequent annual recertification, is that correct?
Well, in the time, the applicant, not yet, because they're not within their year time
Right.
frame. We try to hit those annually, so.
Right.
It has been done. We've have had a couple of them that have worked well with us, and they've come and give us some classes of the process they're using, so that our inspectors and our crews that respond to the area are familiar with what's going on and what products are being used.
Okay.
And so you mentioned there's others in Midwest City. Are they near residential areas also?
No, they're not.
So, a question for Mr. Woods, and maybe the chief as well, because this goes to, when you're processing marijuana, there's a pretty potent smell. I am not saying this from personal experience. What are, in a light industrial, and if you're cooking some of this down, it's probably going to, what are you doing to dissipate the smell? There are neighbors right behind that.
Correct. Well, everything is ventilated and out the top. There isn't any harmful.
I'm not talking about
products.
harmful, I'm talking about the smell of it.
Well, I can smell the barbecue down the street too, but nobody, complains about the smell of it. And so that's kind of my point, is the smell really infringing on people's liberties or affecting their property values? I don't think so.
I don't know.
I think that goes to the city
There was
attorney
a
on
case
that
in
one.
California where sriracha and the state, the city kind of got into whether or not the smell of sriracha impacted home values or not.
Reed's going to hit
And
that softball for us, never mind.
Do what now? I'm going to what?
We were having our
I was trying to defer to the city attorney on that to educate the applicant about the effective smells and case law on that aspect, but you hit the sriracha one, go ahead.
I was doing pretty good, so I'm not an attorney, nor did I stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So there's several issues that I've got with this, the potential smell, where the line between light, medium, and heavy is, and the additional burden that we're putting on our guys. And if we do for one, we do for all. Do we look up and now every single pot dispensary in Midwest City comes back to be rezoned as I-1, and everyone has light industrial, and now everyone smells like pot?
Well, I don't necessarily think or agree that it would increase the smell. I mean, the dispensary does smell like the products that it sells. I don't think that the processing or what we applied for was going to increase the smell, or make it, go further away from the building, as it is. So I don't really see that as an issue, not something I had considered.
Well, the smell doesn't concern me so much as the fact that there's no definition currently in state statute or in 7088 that differentiates between the three processes. And if we open up this door, like it was stated earlier to you, we're opening up the door for the rest of the folks in different steps of the processing method.
Sure.
So that's the concern I have. It's not, if there's no definition statutorily, then we've got an issue. So with that being said,
Can I ask
is there any
a question
further
in case
discussion?
we don't make the same mistake we did earlier, where we have to have her figure out if we can redo something? Is this something that there's statute out there that we can look at to see how other cities or states have done it, to see if there is a way to, going forward, make I-1 work? We know exactly what we've got, and you're not going to get bigger, but it seems like nobody's touched that in this state.
I'm not sure
Chief.
about that. What we have been very specific as what we've applied for. We're willing and able to look under any, be held to any scrutiny level. Yearly inspections is health inspections. There's plenty of people coming to check on us. If we're not to adhere to the application, then obviously that would be a problem. But we've very specifically laid out what we've intended to do. There is nothing that is of any concern to neighbors or the surrounding area. It's very, it's nothing more than a Starbucks would be as far as a footprint of.
I'm sorry,
Chief.
what? Wait,
Okay.
bear with me for just a
All right.
second.
Sure.
There's nothing more benign about your facility that you're proposing than a Starbucks?
So Starbucks processes its product, its coffee, it grinds it, it presses it, it distills it into its final product. And so that's all essentially we're asking to do. That's our application, is to take the product, not do any solvents or any sort of chemical extraction, no pressurized flammable vessels. This is an apparatus the size of a coffee maker that operates in a very similar way in order to make concentrates, which is a product that's sold around. We want to take any excess plant material that's left over, and instead we can't sell just the bottoms of the jars. We can take that, we can roll it into pre-rolled marijuana cigarettes, which is something that we have to purchase now from the processors at an inflated expense. It's something that we could easily do in the shop, something that would save us from wasting any materials, and would benefit, I think, the community as a whole by lowering costs of our medicine that we're selling. And so there is no desire to do anything more exotic or in depth than that. It is merely a way to lower waste and lower cost for everybody.
Chief, we don't have the fire marshal here tonight to be prepared to answer some of the questions. Would you request that we table this to give him an opportunity?
Right, we can get because I know with the rise of the sales, and this is coming across from many different states, that the National Fire Protection Association has included it in one of the standards that will have the distinction between light, medium, heavy. They'll do some different variations on there, and we can find that and get that to you for the next council, or even have Fire Marshal Helmberger here to answer questions that he has. He monitors that. He's been in touch with and following the stuff that's going on at the OSBI, the process, and and reading the latest statutes that came out from that. So.
And while I appreciate that fact, my concern is still the same, though. I mean, what the standards are and how well prepared we are as a municipality to deal with the standards on this remains the same question. However, the area of request also remains the same, and it backs right up to a residential area, and that's still going to be my concern, whether we table it or we vote on it right now.
Well, with that being said, the chair would entertain a motion either to table or to move forward.
Let me ask a clarification question before we take a motion, if you would, Mr. Mayor. Heather, are there any standards that you're aware of that would add to our understanding or clarify our understanding with regard to the, I-1 classification versus another type of classification, given the applicant's intention with the property?
My understanding of our current zoning ordinance is that once you're in that particular zoning, the I-3, that any processing can occur, which can certainly be changed. We can certainly address, as Mr. Norton, Chief Norton indicated, there are standards out there that would give guidance into how we might want to modify the ordinance. But at this point, we would not have any constraints on that, which, if I understand your earlier questions, is part of your concern.
Well, and you just said I-3, but this one is listed as I-1. Is
I'm
that
sorry.
same commentary goes, correct?
Right.
But if we table this request, it comes in back to us again like a boomerang. Everything remains the same, correct?
That's
The same application, the same level.
But we could
of
take no
zoning.
action, and it can come back different.
Right. If you do no action, then they can modify it if they want to. However, at this point, you're right. I was mixing up I-1 with C3, but at this point, the light industrial, there's no limitations on what types of processing would occur in that. Isn't that correct, Kat? Right. So, which we could, as a city, given this particular industry, try to put some, and again, Chief Norton's correct. Fire Marshal Homburger has done a lot of research and work in this area and would be able to address what the fire standards are for that and what the different categories are.
And I've got a question that I think might go to Susan's and my concern about the residents. Oftentimes when there is something like this, residents within 300-foot radius are sent out a letter saying, did you all do that?
Yes.
And you had nobody in the neighborhood say anything, no response came back or anything?
We had one gentleman call. He wasn't necessarily in favor of it, but did not submit a letter of protest and didn't come to planning commission.
So the residents do know from having been notified that this was going to, okay.
Well, and given the area that's involved, in fairness, Councilman Reed, I would say a number of those individuals are renters as opposed to the property owners. And so the degree of concern or so forth that they're expressing could be affected by that. I would just ask the council to take that into consideration as well.
And I support what Susan's saying as far as the residential area goes, but I also believe that it would be my wishes that we either take no action or table it, let the fire marshal come in here, let him explain what the good, the bad, the ugly, because we're gonna see this again. And we might as well get it right the first time versus either approving this or denying it, and then we see it again on a different person. I would prefer to give the fire marshal either 2 weeks or a month, let him get his stuff together, let him be prepared, and let him come in here and tell us, okay, this is what I found out, this is what other cities and municipalities are doing, because I don't think right now we're prepared to do that. I'd hate to vote yes, and I'd hate to vote no, because I don't think we have all the facts.
Did I say we take no action? That will give Mr. Woods the opportunity to talk to the fire marshal also.
Well, plus two, I would challenge the fire marshal also. If he's going to come to us with what he's found out, I would ask him to come to us with suggested ordinance changes so we can enact them and go further down the line. Before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience have anything to say about this particular issue? With that being said, I'm sorry, Mr. Moore, go ahead.
Oh, and I could have asked this later, but Billy, the entire footprint is I-1, or does that building consist of 2 or 3 different uses?
It's just their store.
So
Got Billy
his
Sims,
space is I-1.
Tanning bed, Jackson Hewitt or something like that, and then them, is that correct?
Is this spud governed by I-1?
And C3.
But it's all under one roof. I'm just trying to get the.
No, they're applying for their storefront is the area. He's not requesting to change for Billy Sims area.
Only 1,000 square feet is all that they're asking to be allowed out of the entire building to be used for processing.
How big is the entire building?
Do you know how big the entire? Yeah.
So there's other tenants in that building?
Well, but it's only gonna be 1,000 feet of their
About that.
dispensaries. Their dispensary is much larger than that 1,000 feet. They just want 1,000 feet of their dispensary to be used for.
Will they be in the entire building? Or is there other tenants?
No, there's other tenants. You've got them, you've got Jackson Hewitt, you've got a tanning salon, and then you've got Billy Sims. Am I missing anybody?
That's everybody.
Okay.
Well, we've already had an issue come up with ventilation in one of these facilities and cross ventilation within the building, creating issues down on the other end, so.
I move that we take no action on this and do as the mayor has sort of suggested, ask the fire marshal to come in and educate us and give us some ordinance proposals on that if possible.
And we can allow staff to determine whether it needs to come back in 2 weeks or a month, depending on how much time our marshal needs with Mr. Woods and everybody else, instead of us.
Let's not put
making
a
date.
time limit on it, just
Take no
table it
action.
and ask them to come back with recommendations, not only what they found out, but also suggested ordinance changes so we can move forward. So take no action on this particular item. Thank you for being here this evening, sir. Now we move into the next discussion item.
Item D4, PC 2005, discussion, consideration, approval of the preliminary plat of the Ibanez addition described as a part of the northwest quarter of Section 5, Township 11 North, R1 West, and addressed as 10309 Belmont Avenue. Billy?
Yes, sir. This item is a request to subdivide a single parcel into two individual parcels for single-family development. The proposed lots have frontage on Belmont Avenue. The lots are both over 1,600 square feet in size, which well exceeds the minimum lot size in single-family detached residential. Both lots have access to city water and sewer. The applicant is requesting a waiver to the requirement for half-street and sidewalk improvements. The sketch plat preliminary application meeting for this proposed subdivision occurred prior to the city council asking staff to research alternatives to the requested waivers. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the Ibanez addition preliminary plat with the requested waivers, as does the Planning Commission. Be glad to answer any questions.
Everything's pretty standard in this, in that building.
Yes, sir.
What was the lot width, ma'am? What was the lot width?
It's 90 feet.
Jeff, this one's in your ward, right?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I'd recommend approval. Got a motion? Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries. Next discussion item.
Discussion item D5, PC 2006, public hearing with discussion and consideration of approval of an ordinance to redistrict from planned unit development, PUD governed by the C3 Community Commercial District to amended PUD governed by the C3 Community Commercial District for the property described as a tract of land lying in the southwest quarter of Section 4, Township 11 North, Range 2 West of the Indian Meridian, City of Midwest City, Oklahoma, County, Oklahoma. Billy.
Yes, sir. The request is to amend the Sooner Rose 3 PUD. The original PUD was approved in October of 2017. Since that time, the applicant has acquired additional property to the southwest of the site and has secured tenants for spaces within the PUD. This has caused the need for lot lines to be adjusted to accommodate parking for each use. The applicant first submitted a replat application. However, the proposed replat created non-conforming lots. Two of the proposed lots have less than 100 foot of frontage on a public street, and one lot is landlocked. The landlocked parcel is to be used exclusively for parking, and cross-access agreements listed in the PUD will ensure access to the parcel. This was also allowed in the Sooner Rose 2 PUD, as there are several landlocked parcels within the development with cross-access agreements providing access to all the parcels. This request is to address the non-conforming lots only. No changes are requested for allowable uses, architecture, signage, landscaping, or any other requirements of the original PUDs. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval. Glad to answer any questions.
Any questions or discussions? Chair to entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'm sorry. This is a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience have any issues with this particular item?
Wait to develop.
I'm sorry, now go ahead.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Next item.
Item 6, PC 2007, public hearing with discussion and consideration and approval of the replat of Lot 1 of the Sooner Rose 3 addition for the property described as a tract of land lying in the southwest quarter of Section 4, Township 11 North, Range 2 west of the Indian Meridian, located along southeast 15th Street between Buena Vista Avenue and Crosby Boulevard in Midwest City, Oklahoma. Mr. Harless.
Yeah, yes, sir. This item is a request for the replot of Lot 1 of the Sooner Rose 3 addition. The final plat for the redevelopment was approved in June of 2018 and was rezoned to PUD in October of 2017. This replat is consistent with the PU amendment that was just previously heard. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval.
Any questions or discussions? Chair to entertain a motion. Okay, I keep forgetting this. This is a public hearing. Does anyone have anything to bring before the council on this particular issue?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Next item.
Item 7, discussion, consideration, a presentation by Seltzer Schaefer Architects on updated schematic design deliverables in regards to the new single-story Midwest City Animal Services Center at 2901 Woodside Drive. Chief Claibs.
Well, I'm excited. It's not going to deal with any land or changes to PUDs, but we've got Brian Thomas and Jason Kofer from Seltzer Schaefer here to give an update to the council on our work with the schematic design. And we met with them today, myself and Billy Harless, for about 2.5 hours. Very pleased with the company that we're working with, and so I'll turn it over to Brian.
Mayor Dukes, Council, just a privilege to be here once again in front of you to talk about this exciting project. Over the last 4 months, we've had numerous meetings with your staff and in turn some of their subcommittees for feedback and input as we've started on this path to design and construct this marquee project for you guys as part of this bond. With that, Chief Claibs and Billy, and that's your staff. We work with a lot of clients. I just want to commend their ability to get us information, ask questions, dialogue back and forth to make sure that we are meeting all the goals of your bond. And with that, you know, it's this facility to be state of the art. It's to be inviting. It's to be low maintenance, both on cost and operating cost. The indoor and outdoor visiting areas to come visit these animals, to provide a better quality of life for the animals in there, and then ultimately to be able to almost nearly double your facility. And actually, we have accomplished doubling the capacity of the facility, all within budget. So what you've got on the screen in front of you on the site plan is The goals on this be manage water on the site through innovative construction techniques, range to how we do parking lots, how we do hardscaping, how we do landscaping. And so those are concepts that we're just starting to talk about that you guys could have an opportunity as this project moves forward to visit and explore with that. And these are just initial discussions about if there are opportunities to do that in a cost-effective, actually cost-saving factor now, but also enhance the low impact on this very beautiful and natural site that you have. So we've been focusing on demolition of existing trees, maintaining those. Commend you guys on the purchase of that additional property. It's allowed us to locate this so that we can not spend public dollars relocating sewer lines that are underground to get the predominantly majority of the building out of the flow zones to minimize the impact on that and enhance the cost effectiveness of just the infrastructure of this. In addition, on there we've got parking for staff and visitors. Separated into two lots. The staff area has the ability for staff parking and create a secure environment on the northern side. An additional parking for the visitors and also allowing for future growth. And that was a key thing on the site planning. We want to design a facility that in 5 years, 10 years, or 2 years, that you guys have a need to expand and it looks like an afterthought. So that's been paramount in the planning and site positioning of this. With there. Also, we've had some fun with some of this, is their ability to create an identity with the facility, to create selfie moments with this. And so on the outside, what you see in this image on the outside is you're standing in the park walking up in front of it, and what you see in front of it are two art pieces that would reflect maybe a dog and a cat, conceptually, where you could come in, and in that front area, we've had a lot of talk about developing that into an area of park light where you could meet. You could have outdoor dog days. You could have activities out there and get your selfie in front of the dog and the cat of this facility. At the same time, having forums that are kind of inspired by some of the industries around that you have in here, being open and inviting. This canopy in the front of drawing the use of natural materials of steel, metal, concrete masonry, natural daylighting, diffusing in there, and really opening up this facility of a porch-like entry to your park with that. And as we work around with it, as the expression of what goes on in this facility, I think it needs to feel inviting and playful, and images placed along the exterior of the building that are silhouettes of cats and dogs combined in this silhouettes, really expressing what this facility is about on the inside. From the inside on the outside, and along this view is along Woodside Drive, creating something that sets a nice scale to the park. Yet it has a very unique, and personally, we're really excited about the imagery of this, of kind of to create a very inspiring and unique and iconic structure for you guys, but a place that. When you look at it, it says there's animals inside, and then some playful colors. So as you enter into the lobby, you're greeted by a front desk that's open and inviting, and you can start to see up in the air in there another sculptural element of a giant cat ball yarn in there that would start in the lobby and help carry you through the facility. But what you're seeing in this view as we come back into here is looking back, and in this rendering that you're seeing right now, we haven't had the chance to populate it with working lights. You're just seeing natural daylight like the inside of that, and that's very important to sort of blend. Where does the park start? Where does the inside start? But looking back, this ball, you can see doing creative things that we talked about, like painting up on the wall there with a graphic of a cat maybe peeking around the corner of what's going on, and introducing some fun, inexpensive yet creative ways to give this a very fun character. Same time, we've had conversations with your departments on technology. And so what you're seeing in there is there's a screen where there's the ability to introduce technology that can rotate around animals, public events, components coming in. As you look down the hallway, we could just put a plaque on the wall, or we can make a doggy bone and put a label on it. So we're getting in this kind of detail that we normally don't get later in the project with your staff on there. But this is a view down the hallway that goes into the kennels. There's cattery spaces. There's a large space that almost like a cat playroom that'll have some fun pieces that you'll be able to view. Looking back to the left, this is what we call our get acquainted spaces. These separate what you see on the outside is a part of the park that's been designated and fenced in, that you can take a pet that you feel that you want to engage on. You can come into this room and interact with them and then proceed outside to play with them. And so if you're that participant, you get that joy. But if you're someone new walking the facility, you get to see this interaction going. And we've facility after facility. This is a component that historically gets cut, and we're in budget, and we've got these community outreach spaces in there. Once again, you can look down the hall. That would go into the animal kennels.
Can I stop you for a second, please?
Yeah.
Sorry. Before you move forward any further. So when we talked around the original design and the specs for what we wanted to have in this facility, my recollection is we were going to have 4 adoption rooms. And you just got done talking about the get acquainted spaces, which in other words are adoption rooms. I'm seeing 2 on there at the front of the building next to this great TV community building space that you're just got done referencing also. Are there any more than 2 get acquainted rooms?
There are just 2 get acquainted rooms.
Okay, how did we go from 4 to 2?
So during the programming, we went through and we met with the staff to kind of talk the process, and we talked about needs. We talked about wants and desires. And in there, in this particular one, there was a range of 2 to 4 for a facility of this size. Historically, of the 7 facilities that we've done, all of them have 1. With that, so as we were balancing out priorities through here and balancing space, budget, and program on here, it ended up with 2 within the space. But what we did gain is we have 2 outdoor exercise runs that we have that you can go get acquainted on here. And then this community room that you see at the end, which we would highly recommend, and I think the group feels of an outreach space, is something in the original program that I guess as the team discussed, the value of a community room over get acquainted rooms.
Okay, but can we go back? Can you back up like 2 slides for me, please? Maybe 3, sorry. Okay, so this is the front lobby vestibule area, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So to me, we got a lot of square footage there that we could turn into something else other than just open, empty space with maybe a cat statue or this great ball of yarn hanging from the ceiling in the next room type of thing. I'm more focused on the space and how we're utilizing the space than just the open space. So why also do we have this open vestibule type space that we're not utilizing for something more productive? I mean, is it just to make it look light and airy? Because the next question that I have is going to go to, behind that vestibule space, we have the lobby, and yet at the back of the building, we have a public surrender spot. So is the intention now for people to take their animals, if they are going to surrender them, to the back of the building but not go through the lobby? And then do we have a separate entrance back there for that purpose?
Yeah, so if we can go to the floor plan. Can we go back a couple slides? So in a way, the lobby space, it may look large, but by the time we count into it, when you step in that front door and take 4 or 5 steps, or 2 steps in there, you're about 5 feet. It's about 10 feet from the back of your back at that door to the front counter space. And so from a transactional standpoint, to have it where people walk in, we don't want to cram that initial experience. And then there's room for seating for about 3 to 4 people in that lobby. And once we put that in and work around our required ADA clearance, we've got that about as small as we can get it.
Okay, but let me stop you.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to cut down the lobby space. I'm saying that there is dead space, and I'm not a great schematic viewer type thing, so Councilman Moore, jump in here and help me at any point in time because you know how to read these things. But to me, from where the vestibule is, if you hook a right and draw a straight line over all the way to the edge of the building that would be running north-south type of thing, you've got some empty space there that's not being used for anything.
Yeah,
right?
but that would probably add approximately about, at $200 a square foot. It would throw us out of budget about $150,000, I think.
To fill in that space?
Yeah.
If we take out the cat ball of yarn, will that help us get closer to filling in the space?
That's about $3,000 for that cat ball of yarn.
What about the stray issue? So we're going to have people enter from the back side of the building with strays then?
Yeah,
Is that the plan?
so we've had a lot of discussion about how we want to enter animals, and the front area is viewed as an adoption area. So as you come in and you're first visiting, the facility, your first impression is that first step into the lobby. And so that, in the way of the mechanical systems and how everything's designed, is to really make that as refreshing as walking into this chamber right here in the way of air quality and impression with that. And so with that, that first impression more from the human side than the adoption leaving side, we really want to separate that logistically from contamination from the animal that you pick up that someone's bringing from the street. You do not know where that's come from, what diseases it carries, and just by that entering in that lobby, if it had parvo and any other dog that would come in there immediately after it, we would just now risk contaminating the whole population.
Right, I understand the need to separate it, but how's it gonna function?
Okay, so the staff at the back, when you look at that back area, is someone coming to the facility would come to that back door, that back vestibule. In there, a staff person immediately will greet that person, take that animal from there, go across the hall into the intake suite. At that point, they have surrendered the animal. There's some holding cages there for the officer to temporarily put the animal in there if they have something else they need to attend to. From there, they can, there's a small wash down area if the dog needed to be, or cat needed to be washed down. Or if the animal was in such a condition it needed to be immediately euthanized, it could be done in that room.
Okay, so we're gonna have signage that says, go around back if you wanna surrender an animal?
Yep, and
But
that's,
aren't we gonna still have to put that at the front of the building to say, I mean, granted, they're not gonna be standing in the lobby with these animals that are surrendering, but
Yep.
aren't we gonna have a sign up front that says, hey, go around back if you wanna surrender an animal?
that's correct. That's,
Okay,
that's,
so it's still just as tacky, bottom line. I mean, whether the animal's inside, you don't risk disease and contamination, but you still have a sign up front that says, go around back if you want to surrender an animal.
yeah.
Plus, where are you going to do the paperwork? I mean, your theory is they're going to drop these animals off and greet a staff person, but they have to sign over the rights to those animals as property. So they're going to go back to the front lobby to do that,
No,
or no?
they would do that back at that space. And it's usually a matter of signing a piece of paper and they take the animal and then proceed through the doors.
Right, but there's no real space to do that, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
there's that whole entry is about a 8-foot by 10-foot space, so it's like a small office.
So how many animals is this facility going to facilitate? How many?
It has the capacity at one time, if you were at 100% capacity, you could do 48 canines that you could hold and up to 20 cats, which is double what you're able to handle right now. Historically, you're not going to be at those numbers because you always, you don't want to be at full capacity, because what that does is it forces the euthanization of the animal. So facility management on there is usually about 70% is where they want to stay at capacity. But really the beauty about the system that we got in the kennels in there is that each of those are separated by a guillotine door, so it gives you flexibility on your capacity to sit there, and you could keep the guillotine door up and give an animal a larger pen space, or when it starts to hit near capacity, you can drop that down and be in pen spaces that are slightly larger than what you
Capacity of 60, 40, what was the dogs about? Was that 40?
48 dogs and 20 cats.
48?
48.
48 dogs and 20 cats. What was the capacity at the other one?
The other one right now, there are 24 cages. So, could you cram, I shouldn't say that's not the right, can you place 2 smaller dogs in some of these? But just general guidelines for animal care right now, we're respecting those, and we haven't compromised any of those in our calculations and discussions. So, also the facility has in the future the ability to be expanded, and it's not an historical, it's what we're doing with Edmond right now, 10 years later, to come back and add more adoptional kennel space in there with that. The public surrender, back to that, there's lots of discussions about how that should flow with there, but the layout of this gives us the option for the staff to do that public intake at the back. Could that continue to evolve as we go through there? We're required to have an exit out there for egress, but we saw as an opportunity with the staff as they go, is there ability to get a public surrender near the back of the facility? And this design allowed that to be with a slight adjustment in square footage.
So as with, I'm not trying to place words in your mouth. Things have been changed, and she and I and Pat are on the animal shelter. Things have been changed because of your conversations with staff and others in the community about what the needs are.
That is correct.
And you guys have gotten together and found that having the 2 adoption rooms fit more in the needs of what the shelter
That is correct. All this is in a response to feedback that we got off the original program, and then the first layout to say, here's comments back, and there's been a series of meetings on that as this has continued to evolve.
And Brandon, that's the will, that you feel that's also your people are behind this plan?
We've had extensive conversations with our staff, with Major Huff, with Lieutenant Heron. Obviously, I've sent this information out to the subcommittee in advance to this meeting tonight.
Brandon, you need to be on the phone for live.
Yes, Councilman Reed, we've had extensive discussion with my staff, animal welfare staff, Lieutenant Heron, Major Huff. I've sent this information out to the subcommittee, I think about 2 weeks ago when we received it from Seltzer Schaefer. We've met several times to discuss, we're talking about cost effectiveness and also staying within budget on the project itself and what best meets the needs of our animal welfare, the operations. So,
Is there anything in this plan, the way it is, that's missing that you guys need?
not that we're aware of.
Okay, but Chief, this is still different from what we had conversations with on the subcommittee whenever we talked about it beforehand. So if this is an update from animal control staff and Major Huff and so forth in the chain, that's one thing. But, I mean, has this schematic been approved by our vet who is on the committee?
I sent it to Dr. Acree, who has actually reviewed it, and he actually sent comments back to change the surgery facility. So,
Okay.
yeah,
But that's the only
I've-
part that he's
And
commented
this
on,
did,
right?
this, we did have our animal shelter committee meeting 2 weeks ago, and this was brought to us then.
And I wasn't able to be there, so bear with me.
Sorry.
So I want to say this.
forgot that
What
you
was
were
the priority
playing at a
of this,
concert.
Animal shelter, that was to have, to facilitate space for the animals. Now, I know we looking at all the other diagrams and such, and 4 adoption rooms and this and that and et cetera. But I think the whole idea was trying to facilitate the animals, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, why would we need 4 adoption rooms? We need to, I think we need more, we would look at more space to hold the animals. And by that, with the 48, we actually just really doubled the amount with
Yes,
building
and that
this
was our
facility.
goal, yes.
Been nice, it would have been a little bit more, but,
Well, there is room for expansion.
okay.
But it's all related to dollars too, under the project.
Okay. I think, me personally, I think 2 adoption rooms quote's good, because I think that what we're looking at is how to have space for the animals. That's probably head to the other one. But I saw this one room called the community room. I just wanted, could you expand on that? What is that for exactly?
So one of the spaces, if you look across the nation right now, is how do you get people to the shelter? If you don't get people to the shelter, they're not gonna go walk down the halls. They're not gonna do the get acquainted rooms, and facilities that have space. That this serves a couple of spaces. One, it serves as a space for the staff to meet in a conference room-like setting. But secondly, it gives the ability that as they have special events during the weeks, the months, where they can have adoption day, and you can have a room that you can set some tables up to do not only promote adoption going on at that point,
Okay.
but also to be educational space
Okay.
for post-adoption, because one of the things is if you can empower your adopters to understand how to take care of an animal, the ability for them to keep that animal and not put it back in the street is substantial.
So how many people would this room be able to?
I think it's got in there right now around approximately 20 people
Okay.
in that table setting. This is conceptual, schematic, so that right now is placeholders, but as we get into the furniture design, it's not uncommon to have tables that might be more seminar, that can gang together and be flexible. So this is a flexible space. The other thing that we have seen highly successful in this, and one is an example, Pampa, Texas, it's a town of about 30,000, is they put this in, and all of a sudden some of the small community groups would meet. A small lawyers group gets together and they go, great, we've got a small conference room, can we use it? And 2 years into it, just by getting that, there's no hard numbers to say those meetings are the cause of the adoption rate, but they are challenged to keep that, to get animals to come to that facility because of the exposure it gets to go. I'm looking at the number here. You guys could meet in an informal quorum. You could meet out at that facility right across from the park and use it on. But the bigger thing that drove that is that's an opportunity, was this opportunity for our community. Also, back to the get acquainted it's not uncommon that I may want to bring my dog from home and introduce it to this animal. I can get in a room that's about the size of my living room and use that as an interaction space that might be larger in there, and it's called a common ground space. And mechanically, we've got it isolated right now to do that. So there's a huge span of how these spaces are being used on there. Facilities across it, it's always it's one or two priority if that can get put in on there. Like I said, we've had a lot of discussion on it because there was a lot of talk about it. It was listed as a priority too when we got in there, but then as we talked about this being adjacent to the park-like setting and the ability with the dog park across the street and doing that, it felt our input that we heard from the committees was this is a priority space. If we could get that in the square footage, we can. It's not a cheap space, it's not an expensive space, but it's not the kennel spaces in this design right now. There's been no compromise. We are maintaining the highest quality for mechanical systems in here, cleanability, long-term energy efficiency for all the spaces that are the animals are going to hold in, and that has not been compromised. And like Chief says, we've been holding to the budget, and that's been one of the goals is where the animals are in. We need to make that be all those factors.
Okay, so Chief, or anybody who was at the last committee meeting, so we need to have, in this schematic, we have a TV/community room at the front next to the vestibule. We have a conference room. We have a supervisor's office that has a mini conference room table at it. And those were all priorities that staff identified that they wanted to have occupied.
Actually, what we did, Ms. Eads, is if you look at the original drawing, the restrooms were actually in the back portion of the staff agreed that we felt the restrooms should be up in the front for several reasons. One is it ties in the public as they're walking the trails or going to the animal shelter to walk in, hopefully invite them in to use the restroom, and then maybe have the opportunity to look at what animals we have for adoption. We actually, the ACOs, the animal welfare workers, actually wanted a larger workspace and a smaller what was the area, Billy, that we shrunk? The break room. They actually wanted a smaller break room, bigger workspace. We actually addressed the surgery center with Dr. Acree. We were trying to flip the food preparation closer to the kennels, but we couldn't do that. So there were some suggestions that we implemented, some that we did not, but it's based on staff's recommendation.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember back to the first committee meeting that we had, there was some priorities that we came up with. The first one was location, because we knew if we put it someplace where the public could see it and drove by it, that would help. The other thing is that we wanted to make it, once they saw it, we wanted to make it inviting. And that's why I like what's being going on. I've been to the meetings, because if it's in a good location, which I think it is, it's inviting, which I think it will be, across from a park, I think the number of our adoption on the animals is going to go up, because people aren't going to have to drive out to 36th Street, which it's not that far, but they don't, it's out of sight, out of mind. People don't see it, but they're going to, in order to go through Midwest City, you're going to drive by that animal shelter wherever you go.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to see what it looks like. You know, let's stop in there. And I like it.
I do too. I think it's not. Oh, no, man. I just want to quote something about the acquainted room, where that you will, you can just get acquainted with the animals. That's also like a point of adoption in such a way. So you understand what I'm saying?
No,
We're saying
that's
more
exactly.
adoption
You are
rooms.
right
I don't
on.
think we need any more there. That's fine, because if you get acquainted with an animal, you pretty much know if you want to adopt it or not. So you make pretty much a decision right there. So I think that that's really good. But then you said there's the cat room too, the cat acquainted room and the dog acquainted.
So there's, as we go down and back to the, let's go back to the plan. Are we able to blow that up any bigger? Is it okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. As you go down the hallway there, we come to the lobby. We go through a pair of doors that separates that corridor out in front of the community room and get acquainted. As you go down there, there's a space between the cattery and the front reception that would have, I think it's about 6 foot by 6 foot, something like that. It's a glass box that'll have some fun cat trees and stuff. So in the cattery room, they'll be able to put animals in there. So those cats will be able to watch what's going on in the hallway. They'll watch what's going behind the front desk. If you're walking up the front desk behind it, you'll see this. It's always fun how a cat watches you and looks back with that. Then adjacent to that are 2 cattery rooms, and they're loaded on the hallway sides. It's a wall of glass with cat condos, as they call them, that have basically glass on the side. So as you're looking at the hall, you can see all the animals, the cats in the cattery. And that's along the front side, but we also recognize that not all cats right at first like that exposure. So along the back wall, there's a set of cat condos at the back. All these are on rollers, so the staff could rearrange them if they needed to. So there's areas for cats that may not be comfortable to be out in the front. Also, all these rooms on the outside with technology, we've talked about integrating at the door control, access control. So it will give flexibility with the staff as things change over time. As we go back and tour facilities, it's always changing in the way of access. So if they could have it where maybe people, the only way they can get into that room would be with a staff coming to get a staff, or policy-wise.
Let me ask you this, you like cats?
I like cats.
Okay, because I know you were just talking a lot about them, you know.
Well,
before, so
I'm
they
allergic to
interact
cats.
with
I
them,
own
like,
all dogs,
okay.
but I
All right.
have owned pets my whole life
Right,
from
good.
shelters, so I love animals.
In reference to the dogs, I just like to ask this. Now, you was talking about how the cat can see this and
Yeah.
interact and everything while they can see us looking through the window. How about the dogs?
So on the dogs, what we got is these get acquainted rooms and this community room as well serve on it. So for the dogs, what we have that's exciting about them is the, we'll come back in December, September, we'll be back for DD, is we'll show you a lot more pictures, but the kennel systems in there allow really good exposure to the animals. So the environment on the inside is going to be a lot healthier than they got, but at the back, 2 spaces that you can interact with them. One, you can bring them to get acquainted. Also, those get acquainted rooms, if they're not being used to get acquainted, numerous facilities we see them use, and you'll bring a nice a dog or that you want to get adopted and have it be in a get acquainted room. So it's basically in a glass area up front. But you can take that dog out to that outdoor area that's very generous in size, that green space for an outdoor space that's fenced in, so the dogs can hang out there and interact and play with. But one of the things that we were able to enhance on this over the other plan is you go down that hallway past the kennels and you go back outside near the back are 2 large outdoor exercise areas. So the dogs will be able to go outside and be able to be rotated in and around for outdoor exercise space. So I think we've provided some great outdoor space and some indoor space for the animals.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
One thing Brandon said in the meeting last go around, the committee meeting, was for the most part, we're doing something most cities don't. We're putting this front and center in our city. And that's something he said that you guys are pretty excited about because they usually get put off in a way away corner of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate the positive feedback you gave to the chief on the fact that we're a little bit outside the box in our way we're doing this.
Yeah. I think that's what I was commending them is they're doing their research. I mean, we bring our experience, but all these questions that you guys are asking, we have been having those discussions sometimes in what should be, a 1 hour meeting, and 4.5 hours or 5 hours later we're leaving. But we're really trying to get it right, and as the chief says, balance your dollars, not only for this first investment, but set up success that in the future, if you needed to make improvements on this, we're not taking steps backwards, we're taking strides forward on there. And I think some of it too, you guys are learning what you want this to be. You know, I mean, when you first came in there and I go, where's the site? And we have our whole list of, if you're gonna ask us about site, and he goes, it's right here, buy a park. Go, check, 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 check. Talk about where we're gonna locate it. And is it near residential? Check, 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 check. Is it along a thoroughfare? So you just location, location, location. We're going, why can't I have this on every project? You know, it's usually a challenge to find it. So we start off there, and then you guys purchase the additional land because we're like, well, how do we construct this down near the water and all that? And they go, I think we're looking at buying this. Give us feedback, and we go, here's plus, 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 and it's worked out. And what it's worked out on is, we were running some numbers with our engineer, we'd probably spend an extra $100,000 if we were located on the front piece of this property. And so now we're investing back in, I mean, you had to buy the land, but we're able to keep the quality level and keep these things that we're talking about, community outreach spaces in the project, where if we were on that front half, I'm sure we'd be having a whole different conversation tonight to go, well, why didn't we get this? Why didn't we get that? You know, it's there. And in regard to the budget, one of the things that's challenging us right now and in our cost estimates is we all know what's going on with tariffs. And depending on when day you watch the news, if it's 5%, it could go to 25%, and that doesn't happen. We just bid out the Edmond Animal Shelter 3 weeks ago, 4, pretty recent. So it gave us really fresh numbers of what's going on there. We've accounted for some slight adjustments in our cost estimate, but the biggest unknown we have right now is what we don't know is what's the global economy and particularly the U.S.'s stance on tariffs are going to impact. And you know, something as simple as steel going up 5%. Or 10%, that's a $200,000 to $300,000 hit on this job. And so we're just monitoring that. We bid some things last week. They've kind of held steady. So at this point, all our projections are based on if we stay true to what we normally see in projections on there. But I just want to make everyone aware, if all of a sudden we read in the news where there's giant spikes in tariffs, we're going to have to, as a committee and group, we've talked about, well, how are we going to strategize that and react to that so that we can ultimately present things to you. But hopefully things continue, because our schedule right now overall is to geotech and demolition is in our meeting today was priced that in August those activities will happen on the site. So the existing house and we've already identified some of the trees that'll be right in the building to go ahead and get some of that demoed and get some of that cleaned up for you guys. Geotech, that's our subsoil. Right now we're hoping, based on other buildings in the area, we can do spread footings and there's nothing unexpected underneath there. With that, we don't anticipate anything, but I've been surprised in the past. But we're targeting right now our schedules to come back in September for a DD presentation with you, which will have a lot more detail. You know, I'll get with the chief and his deals, and we'll have every material selected and samples up, so we can talk as long as you want about all those. But we'll have those available to bring here if that's something that's desired. There'll be more development on this. You know, back to using the committee, you saw a plan, and then you're seeing it over roughly 3 weeks, and it's us reacting to your feedback. And I was telling today, he goes, oh, we got some more feedback. We want feedback. We want.
I believe Mr. Moore had a couple of questions for you.
Real quick, Kelly, go back to the floor plan if you would. It looks very good. I like the flex space. I think you guys have done a great job. Do you have an elevation that you can make sure y'all look at? Was it the kennel room that's on an angle? I know it looks good, it's fun, but that's got to have a little bit of wasted space. But I'm just curious, are you going to be able to see that? Is it going to be worth it? At the back side of it, I'm curious about another elevation.
It's funny you bring that up.
But
We've had it squared, we've had it angled, we've looked at it both ways. Some of the things that the angle does, you know, are you going to really notice it standing out there? Probably not visually, but what it does really subtly is if we square that back up, what it does is it creates a hallway that's about the same width all the way down there, which is not bad in itself. But what angling does for us is as you get near the front and where most of the activity is, it widens that hallway up. So it greets you a little bit wider when you walk down in there. As you go deeper into the facility, the kennel spaces at the back on there are going to be probably more focused on control animals and quarantine type animals on there. So I don't want to discount that it's a small space by any means. But we've turned it, we squared it, we turned it.
No, that's fine.
But the last one was just some of the benefits of the committee was could we retain that angle and open up that hallway a little bit near the front, a little bit wider, while still maintaining that back one. We're probably talking 50 square feet. You know, it's not huge. But to answer your question, at the end of the day, the committee, when we said, you tell us, I'm personally indifferent.
Well, the only reason I was bringing it up, I know it's got to have a little bit of wasted space in it. But if the angle, if it looks good, that's all good. I just wondered if you had an elevation of that site where you can appreciate it.
I just think,
Well-
is that the front? Is that the front of it?
No, it's the
No,
back.
it's on the
The back.
side.
Well, in the sake of time, we appreciate you indulging all our questions and comments. It's obviously going to be a
Can I
beautiful
just ask
facility.
just one more question? If we do expansion for is trying to facilitate more animals, how many do you think that we would be able to,
So if you go back to that site, floor
Okay.
plan.
how many for expansion? You think we could be able to?
So when you see those outdoor get acquainted air rooms right in here, that whole area very easily could be added, which would probably add another, we looked at it one time with it turning, one of those long ones, I guess to answer your question, it's how many do you want to add? It's that hallway that turns and bends back in there, we would just continue to add kennels in there. What we've done is located the infrastructure of
Put it
transformers and stuff out of the way. But in reality, as you move in that direction, it's just dollars. I mean, at the end of the day, on
Could
there. So,
be-
but probably realistically, I think you could add another 10 to 12. And,
okay.
and with the infrastructure for power and things that we're going to go ahead and put on day one on there, which so that's a 150% increase from where you are today on there. It's been interesting to watch. I was reading an article the other day on facility growth, and what they're finding, rather than adding more kennel space, when they've got what you guys have got, so a lot of times there's not the community room already, there's not any adoption rooms, there's already been compromise on there. It's basically a new version of your old one. You walk into the vestibule, and there's the door to the kennel or the cattery. But the ones that are coming back, they're not needing to expand as much for kennel space because the animals are moving so much faster through. But we don't want to shortchange. Who knows the future? So, that's your question. I think easily you could get a whole one of those longer banks. In one of the earlier sketches, we had that and get it in.
I'll just wait for September when you come back again.
Is there any further questions?
I have one.
Okay.
So it looks to me like the height of the building, part of it is like there's a fake second floor to it when it's supposed to be single story. Am I understanding that right? Off to the right?
That is, the edge of that building is about 14 feet tall, and then it peaks what you would have like a house on there. So this angle's a little deceiving because where you're standing, that grade is about 6 feet lower than the finished floor because it's that much lower where we're standing. But if you swing around to maybe the side view on there, you can see some people standing there. We're about 14 feet to the edge of that roof. So it's about as low as I can get it. I mean, in the way.
Okay.
And then it's got I think we're a 612 pitch or maybe a 412. I don't know.
Well, again, thank you for indulging all of our questions, and I'm sure there'll be more to come, but thank you. It's a beautiful facility. And actually, there's no action needed on this particular item, so if there's no further quick discussion, we need to move on to our next discussion item. Thank you, sir,
Thank
for
you.
being
It's
here.
it's always a privilege, so appreciate your time tonight and keep feeding feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. I do want to publicly thank Ms. Eads, Mr. Byrne, and Sean Reed for our Animal Welfare Subcommittee. They've been involved in this process. It's been unprecedented because of the fact that we've tried to make sure that every step we've been very cautious to bring enough information forward to move ahead. I think what it's important to understand today, this is schematic design. Before we get into development design, we need to make sure that what we have, what we talked about, is what we want. Because if we go back in the development phase and change something, it costs lots of money for us to do that. So I guess I would challenge everyone on the council tonight to, if there's any concerns or changes that we need to make, we need to do it as soon as we can to move forward with the process. So.
Thank you, Chief.
We have large sets of prints if somebody would like to see those in person in our department, so more than welcome to look at those.
Okay. We'll now move into our next discussion item.
Item 8, discussion and consideration of a quarterly update on the progress of the execution of the general obligation bond projects. This is a follow-up to, this was the GO bond project, and if there's any questions for any of the staff on any of the quarterly report.
we're moving right along, folks, and things are getting busy, so it's all good.
Excuse me, Mayor. I guess I discussed it with Vaughn earlier and talked about how, we're talking about putting these on the web page and stuff. So I thought it would be an opportunity if we could take just a few minutes to show you some of that, if that's okay. And I'll also introduce you to Greg Heckman, who is our GIS coordinator.
Sure.
That's helped do some of these things that we're doing. So, Greg, you want to come on up? Go ahead and click the first one. If you haven't seen these on the web page, this is access that's right on the front page that gives some of the details of the projects that are going on there by proposition. So I know that's difficult to see, but obviously it's on the first page. But this is what Greg has been directly responsible for, is the Geo Hub, and you access this off of the community development page. There's a selfie of Greg. But the web maps, and so you can access these off of our web page, and they tell us different stories on different things that are going on. There's a projects map that the council was asking for. I don't know, it's been a little while back, but that's on here that you're able to click on that and get an idea of where some of the projects are and what some of the details are. But the story map over on the very right side, go ahead and click on it to show you how this works. As you scroll down, there are some of the concepts from the beginning, and then there are some of the first designs that we've shown, and then it has details, and you just scroll through this, site plans. There's one of the, I think that's the old one. Yeah, that's the older one. And then also Greg is our drone pilot that flies the drone, and on some of these there'll be some actual drone footage of these different sites. So anyway, I don't know.
Could you get Claudia to put this in our PR stuff and our social media so folks have this link and they know?
So go back to the part.
Sure.
Yeah, Councilman Reed, we are, Claudia and I will be working together to do some short videos of how to use some of these web maps for the public.
Right there.
And the GeoHub page, if I can elaborate just a little bit on that, is full access to the public of various web maps. We used to have a product called Map Viewer that I think most of you are aware of. We have replaced that now to use our Esri product, which is our GIS software. It's an all online capabilities of web maps. There's open data, so some of our data, non-security issue data, so our infrastructure's not out there, but city limits, HOA boundaries, that's downloadable data for people to access if they need to. And some of these maps have various themes for them. The Citizen Map Viewer has everything from parcel boundaries to addresses to HOA boundaries to a tool in there called the Near Me app that allows them to either enter an address or click on a point to be able to see exactly what their recycle pickup day is, what trash day is, what ward they're in, who their council member is. So we've been able to try to release a lot of this information to the public that otherwise might be difficult to find. We've put it in a single location for them to access.
Yeah, they're community development.
It's community development, and then also on the very front page, if you click on the Maps tab, it will take you directly to the GeoHub. And in the story maps, there are the story maps that has the various projects that community development and other departments around the city are working on. A tab for the bond projects with a little bit more detailed information in there with links to either drone video like what you're seeing here, or there's links to more detailed story maps concerning that particular project, and a link to Claudia's page that she is maintaining with all the detailed updates on each of the projects.
And so another example of one of these, since it's been really popular, is the medical marijuana map that's on there, and you can go in there and click different layers on there to see where the zoning districts, there we go, the different zoning districts and the buffers around schools, those type of things. There you go. So there's a buffer around.
For the dispensary view. There is also an internal sites page that is also these web maps that is strictly just for employee use, and it will be accessible by all council members and city staff as well. Please contact me. I can set up access for that for each of the council members. Inside there in the medical marijuana map actually has the locations of the dispensaries, the process facilities, and the grow facilities. That is not public knowledge.
That's good stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That's good work. Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Is there any more on the Geo bond projects? Mr. Lyon?
Let's go to item 9, discussion item 9, discussion consideration awarding a bid and entering into a contract to purchase one new E1 fire pumper with flow meter option to Chief Fire and Safety Company, Inc. for a total price of $666,798. Chief Norton, do you have anything to add to this? This is under the GO bond.
And we'll answer any questions you guys may have. This is the engine that we had voted on. The GO bond committee did a bunch of work and went out to bid for the what's going to be the best need and fit for Midwest City. I think there were some questions earlier. These are a 365-day build out on them, so it'll be about a year.
So we'll
before.
see it this time next year.
At the latest, yes, sir.
Is there any questions, comments? Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Motion carries. Next item.
Item 10, discussion and consideration granting a waiver to the public sanitary sewer connection requirement for a potential commercial business located at 8100 Northeast 23rd Street, Midwest City. And Patrick, are you handling this?
Yes, sir. Mayor, Council, the applicants are looking at a potential commercial business that would front on the Northeast 23rd. Before they enter into the rezoning process and the building permit process, they're wanting to petition the council for a waiver to the sewer connection requirement. This property right now does not have any public sewer adjacent to it that they could utilize. You see on the map that the area that it's located in does have some commercial business that fronts onto 23rd. This is all older business that was essentially grandfathered in using individual systems. They are asking for the same consideration. The closest sewer that could potentially tie this to the property is roughly 2,500 foot to the east. So it would be a significant project to bring that sewer to the property for them to utilize. However, having said that, I am not aware of us granting a waiver of this type before, but we do have the provisions in the code to allow the applicants to come to you and state their case, and they're here tonight to speak to you and give you their plans and answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Lasani, you signed up to talk on this particular item. Would you approach the podium and give your name and address, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Kevin Lasani, L-E-S-S-A-N-I. My wife, Vida Ostovar, O-S-T-O-V-A-R. We live in Edmond, 2424 Steeplechase Road. We have been looking for a new location, a second location to expand our business. We are currently in business. We sell vehicles. We have a car lot on South Shields Boulevard. We've been in business for 20 years. We have a combination experience of 30 years, she and I. We employ 6 people in Oklahoma City. And we're interested in this property, and actually we're in contract to purchase the land in a couple of days. We'll be closing on it in 2 days. And of course, I have a handout I'd like to, with your permission, to give it to all the members here, and just, it's 11 pages long. There's some photographs, This is one of them, and just a few more that shows the neighbors immediately to the east and west of us. There's like two on the west side and one on the east side. And there's a couple, 3 pages that goes over the floor plan of our proposed building and also the site plan, and just broadly lets you know what the building is going to look like. Actually, we have a couple of pictures of our building that we're operating in right now. It is, of course, it'll be in conformity to the city of Midwest City and the codes. And I understand that, I'm not sure, but I think the requirements are that it be 100% masonry building, which we have no problem with that. We do have a prepared statement. It is very short, and my wife is going to read that to you. Could I bring the handouts to you? Would you like to see them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Patrick, could you get those and hand them out to us?
So the first 3 pages, obviously, is just map, and I got these copied from Google. The third page is the property itself. There are 2 existing homes on this almost 2 acre lot. They have been abandoned since 2013. One home was built in the 50s, the one on the left, and there is another one on the right that was built, I believe, in the 60s, or vice versa, I'm not sure. But they are abandoned. They have been that way since 2013, as far as I know, maybe longer. They are completely gutted out due to theft. The buildings, the homes, there's nothing left on them. All the copper wire, plumbing, HVAC, windows, anything valuable metal has been removed. There's really just bare walls and the frame. It's unfortunately, I was talking to the neighbors to the east and west, or car lots, and a detail shop. They were concerned about the activity of transients. It has become a problem there, and of course, when we have that kind of a traffic of transients, there's also unfortunately theft and break-ins into cars that the neighbors were telling us about. And then the last 4 pages are starting with the site plan, and that's basically what the building we're operating in right now looks like. It has 4 bays, about 40 by 40 feet, 20 feet long. It is modern. There are all kinds of mechanical equipment. Of course, we have a detail shop in there, and the office space is 20 by 60. Very comfortable to handle at least 2 salespeople, 1 office clerk, and then of course my wife and I are involved as well. We do most of the purchasing of the vehicles. We try to purchase probably 9 out of 10 of our vehicles in Oklahoma City area, and sometimes we also visit Dallas to purchase some vehicles there and have it shipped down here. So at this time, would you like to do that? Okay. I think she's a little cold, and we were worried about distortion in the speech because she's shivering. So I'll go ahead and read this. Of course, it says 8100 Northeast 23rd Street. It is zoned at this time. I'm not sure what kind of a residential, if it's R6 or whatnot. And of course, our request here for you to consider is to waive the sewer connection, to the public sewer connection, which does not exist. At this time, we have, and I've been seeing water being brought out to that area, and of course, we're going to tap onto it as soon as the water is down on the ground. But we're going on line one, number one. This residential property is non-conforming, as there are 2 homes and only one of them homes is recorded at the city. The other is not recorded. 8100 Northeast 23rd is surrounded with commercial C4 active properties, and the heavy traffic on Northeast 23rd makes this property a must for commercial zoning. It is not suitable for residential, and no one wants to build on it as residential. This is why it has been vacant since, I believe, 2013. The owner of the property is an elderly lady who does not want to improve it. We have to do it. We'll have to do whatever we have to do. Of course, we're not going to improve the homes. We have to demolish it and, of course, build something that will suit our business. The property by character is commercial, really. About the connection requirements of, to the public sewer, we have discussed the possibilities of connecting to the city sewer with the city director of Development, Mr. Robert Coleman. It appears the extending the sewer, the public sewer to this location costs several times the value of the property. However, if everyone is willing to pay, that's our neighbors and anyone else in that area, we're certainly willing to pitch and help and have that happen. Additionally, we have attempted connection to the city of Spencer. We talked to the city of Spencer and wanted to see what their take was on that. The Director of Utilities and Engineering, Mr. Terry Kelly, met us at the property and we walked it, and of course he let us know that it is not going to be possible. It's impossible. It requires boring under 23rd Street, and on the north side of 23rd Street there is an AT&T vault. It's about 5 feet high, I believe, and just going through that would be next to impossible. And also the pumping station for the sewer is too far away, so the costs are just not going to be feasible. Okay, so just lost my place here. All right, there are 2 septic systems on the property that have existed before the city ordinances. In addition, all of the businesses to the left and right of this property at 8100 Northeast 23rd Street property are running on septic with no problems at this time. We believe a waiver to the public sewer connection is sensible and beneficial to everyone. Now, as far as improvement, a masonry building on all sides, that's on north, south, east, west side of the building, encourage the surrounding properties to improve their properties as well. Floor and site plan has been copied, and I think you're looking at it. It's the last 2 or 3 pages on the handout. You have photos of our existing operation on Shields, and that you're welcome to keep it as part of your record. When the zoning changes to commercial, when the zoning changes to commercial zone, the value of the property and the property taxes will increase, of course, bringing in more revenue for the city. Benefits, of course, would include sales projection that we have, projecting auto sales of $1 million annually. Employment opportunities for the city also, hopefully like employ people from within the city and the surrounding area, because it'll take less time for our employees to get to work. And that provides opportunities for about 6 employees.
Can I ask a question really quickly before you go on? I'm sorry. You just mentioned your annual revenue is anticipated or estimated at $1 million. Is that correct?
Yes,
Is that based on your other business?
correct.
Okay. And this one will be of similar size, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Of the $1 million in sales from your other business, how much of that do you pay to the city in which that business sits in terms of taxes that go to the city?
In terms of taxes, I don't really have an accurate figure. As you know, car lots, I'm sure there is a proportion allocated to the city. I don't have that.
Well, that's what I'm not sure of, I
The
thought
answer
it
is
was
zero,
no.
because
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
sale of cars, now, if you were to buy parts, there would be a tax on that, but cities, municipalities do not get a dime from the sale of an automobile in the state.
You may be right about that. And of course, the last 3 lines, we're going to reflect on that as well. Of course, the traffic increase, which I've seen this in reality, it's not just a theory. The last 20 years, we operated on Northwest 39th and Meridian area. When we moved in there, of course, we operated prior to 2000 for a few years at a friend of mine's car lot. There was really not much happening on 39th Street at that time. And then we were, of course, going into a mild recession in 2000. And we just saw businesses just sprouting out, restaurants, Taco Bell, Taco Bueno, Jimmy's Egg, I can name McDonald's. Not only they came in, they remodeled and they expanded. And of course, they were enjoying the traffic, the increased traffic. And we're hoping that it'll do the same thing. And I'm not saying that my car lot will do all of that, but we would be a part of that, and we'd like to be a part of that. And then, of course, the opportunities, the purchasing, increased purchasing opportunities for the city of Midwest City would be higher, certainly better than what it is right now, and that would be parts and services that we buy from places like O'Reilly's, AutoZone, and they're all not too far away from us. I've already looked at that. Increased amount of related businesses, such as, of course, I just talked about that, auto parts services.
Mr. Lasani, I'm going to interrupt, and I'm going to just say, I have zero problem with car lot. I think it's going to surprise nobody that sits up here or has paid any attention. I'm 100% against a variance, and I'm 100% against a variance that this city has never done before, because it opens up the door for us to do it to anybody else that comes to us and says, hey, you did it for them, now you have to do the same thing for us. And we've got ordinances and codes for a reason. Sometimes they might not seem just, but we do have them for a reason, and I am 100% not in favor of giving any kind of variance on this property.
May I respond to you on that? This property is different from just about anybody else who's going to come in and ask
But
you.
I'm just telling you, I am 100% opposed to any variance of the city. I hate variances.
Sorry to interrupt.
May I finish my
Sure.
thought on that? Okay. So, and I appreciate that. What makes our case different is it's not just any residential property. This is a property that's been sitting abandoned for a long time. It is surrounded by commercial properties. This is not an area that we go into a area that are just nothing but residential and then pick one spot and build a commercial property between those homes.
I want to ask this, just one second. Billy, how many of these properties on septic tanks around it?
Most of these are on septic.
Okay,
They're-
so
if they're
if
open,
we
they're on
was to do this, that mean that anyone else come on along down the line, we have to do the same to them? Now, I believe in economic development, and my understanding, and we all, want to update Midwest City. If we keep allowing people to come in with, with the septic tanks in this area, it's going to continue on and on and on. Now, Billy, didn't you say that that we somehow, later on, we're coming through with, what, developing this with the...
Well, I think they want to develop it into a car lot. They originally came to us to rezone the property for a car lot, and we would not let them proceed with rezoning if we don't allow them to tie on to sewer. There's no sewer there, so we stopped the rezoning process and informed them that they had to tie on to sewer. But we do not allow commercial businesses on septic systems.
Which is pretty standard.
Mr. Moore, you had some questions.
Yeah, and I was just gonna ask Patrick, is there any particular reason that this hasn't been sewered? Just hasn't grown enough to create a demand? But I mean, it seems like 23rd's getting busier and the new interstate.
Yes, sir. I mean, and that's the goal, is to provide service to every lot, commercial and residential, in the future. This is behind the curve quite a bit as far as developing. That's why we have a lot of these smaller businesses that front on their own individual systems. We are in the process of putting water along 23rd Street as we speak.
But there's no major lift stations or anything like that?
No, sir, not right now. It'll take a significant investment from the city or our business partners to sewer the area.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that we've heard about enough information, Mr. Lucini. So with that being said, the chair would entertain a motion either to approve or deny this request.
Well, if he wants to, can he bring it up to date, Billy?
For $750,000.
Oh. How much?
500 to 600. 750 is what he would pay to build the place.
And I just want him to understand my thinking. I mean, we've got to think ahead. With the new interstate coming in, 23rd's going to get busier. There's going to be a bigger demand. It's relatively flat. It's all going to be sewered at some point. And each time you let an individual bypass that, then that makes it harder for the landowner next door or future development. It just gets harder and harder. And I'd like to, talk to Robert is our economic, our developer guy. I think there's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't let this happen. Just so you understand it more.
Can I say something?
Please say your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Vida Ostovar, and I live in 2424 Chase Road.
Okay.
And what I think makes this property different from others is that this existed, the septic system on this property existed before the city ordinances. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
I was split on this issue when they first approached me about it. We've got plenty of car lots in Midwest City, so as far as an economic development prospect, the attractiveness is quite limited. It's not going to be a huge sales tax collection point unless we pass an ordinance that makes it so, and I don't think that would be very popular. To look at this on a different matter, as far as the future potential, I don't think there's a huge potential out here for an immediate retail development. There's a lot of properties down through that are non-conforming. This may represent our best chance to get rid of two non-conforming houses that we may be looking at for some time if we don't approve this. I think you've got a basis there for a variance in the fact that there's an existing septic system, and I think that if they're able to tap that system, that would certainly be a reason for the variance. Now, we've been approached by other people down through this corridor on the same matter, but in those instances, there was no existing system. They were wanting to develop on what was essentially a greenfield lot where there had never been anything before. So I think you've got a reason there for the variance. The surrounding properties are non-conforming as well. They've been out there since, from best I can tell, from the late 40s or early 50s before they were ever incorporated. So I think this would represent a major improvement along the corridor. Yes, it would be great if we had a system out there, but I don't know how much potential there is for that for a long amount of time. So I think this is a one chance to improve that area without a whole lot of, well, with no city investment.
Is there a thinking out of the box a little bit? If there was, you start having more people doing this, is there like a fee in lieu of that could help? They have to tie back in if it does come available. But I mean, my gut feeling is no, but I'm just trying to think a little bit and appreciate what you guys said.
A fee in lieu of is a great idea. You would have to have a lot of participants to make it worthwhile before it would be attractive for us to go in there and do some type of match. But at the very least, if you decided to approve the variance, you might want to go ahead and get your easement on the backside so that we wouldn't have to come after that later on. And again, I think that the fact that there's an existing system there, have that inspected by a third party to make sure that it's viable and not allow them to do any alterations to the lateral field or to the tank, not to disturb it so that it's maintained as original. But the idea of a fee in lieu of is interesting. I just don't know, what you would base that on or how you would collect it from the others out there.
I don't think currently we have an ordinance in place to do that.
No, Mr. Lyon, we don't have a program like that right now, as of now.
Okay, I think we've heard enough information this evening. And again, I would entertain a motion either approve or deny this issue.
I would like to, what he said about the two, that to see if it's tapped in, if they can tap into those, Robert, you were saying that there's two, what on there? Two septic tanks, and that if.
Well, those two septic tanks in it are gonna be sold. They're not gonna work, period.
Oh.
Wouldn't you say? I mean, they're 50-year-old houses. They're not gonna be any good.
Those are 50, 60-year-old.
Mr. Mayor, I move to
Once
deny.
again, the chair would entertain.
Move to deny.
Approve or deny.
Move to deny.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? I'm sorry the variance failed. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We now move into discussion item number 11.
Discussion and consideration of reappointing Dave Herbert and Russell Smith to the Midwest City Urban Renewal Authority for an additional 3-year term to end on July 26, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item.
Discussion and consideration of reappointing Lou Atkinson, Sherry Anderson, and Grace Sullivan for 3-year terms to the Midwest City Tree Board.
Motion to
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We now move into new business public discussion of our agenda. Mr. Bridges, I believe you have something to bring before the council.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, William Bridges, 10300 Belmont. I want to thank y'all, really thank you. This is the first meeting that I have attended that I've been able to hear you. I know I have 2 hearing aids, and as the gentleman said when he started off, now we can hear you. Please continue with this.
Well,
I had a couple items.
We took your suggestion to heart last week, Mr. Bridges, so go ahead.
And in turn, maybe we need to include a break for us seniors that in turn, I don't know if that's possible. But anyhow, we go quick, like I had a couple items, I'll keep it to one. I in turn have been out here in the city traveling. I see people running red lights. I see people speeding. I in turn look around. I don't see any officers. I talked to Brandon and I wish Brendan would stay here. He and I discussed it. What I found out from him, he has 3 officers that is on injury leave, sick leave. He has 4 officers that is attending CLEAT certification, which requires 17 weeks. Then he has 4 officers, they have from their 4 months, basically on the job training. And in August, he said they're looking to hire 4 more. We just heard they're looking to increase here their marijuana sale. I know some of you may not have next door. It's an application that the members turn around and discuss what's going on. Next to me, there was a car broken into. When I asked the question, on the Belmont area, I am the lead for Belmont. There are so many people that their vehicles, their house is broken into. We need, I do not see anything on here. Instead of waiting till August to hire 4 more officers, Brandon is an outstanding, and the members of our police officers, they're outstanding. Brandon cannot create miracles. He needs to get those officers out on the street, so in turn we can be taken care of. Why wait until August? You figure if you hire them in August, there's 4 months. They go to CLEAT certification. There's 4 months on the job training. So you're talking about 8 months. Brandon says right now he needs 11 officers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges, appreciate it. No. No, you and me in a patrol car. Yeah.
Yeah, was he volunteering to cross over here?
We now move into further information, the minutes of the July 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission. They're attached. Further information only. If there's no further discussion or anything for the council, we are hereby adjourned. I now call to order Midwest City Municipal Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda to the items so the trustees by unanimous consent can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item does not meet with the approval of all trustees or members of the audience which discuss an item to be removed in regular order, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 5, and would like to pull that into the discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Without item 5.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number 5, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion and consideration of renewing a contract with a 2% increase for CPI for fiscal year 1920 with Republic Services Compactors and Roll-Offs Hauling Services. In fiscal year 1819, $240,640.16 was encumbered for hauling services and Republic Services, and $257 was budgeted for fiscal year 1920. We didn't want that to be a consent item in case there were any questions, and it is a contractual rate increase.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Lyon or Mr. Sullivan? Is he still here?
40 to 257,000 isn't a 2% increase.
I'm assuming that's because we have additional compactors and additional services at commercial bond. Do you know?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question, Councilman.
So 240,000 times 102% is 244,800, not 257,000.
Okay, I'm gonna answer that under some assumptions, okay? I'm fairly confident that the $240,640.16 is common. It is common that we give you that information in our memorandum so that you can see the value of a particular contract on an annualized basis. All we're trying to illustrate there is that's what we spent in FY 18-19 under this contract. It does not mean that the dollar amount will come up to that exact $257,000 in FY 19-20.
So you saying
There's
it was
various
budget?
businesses come and go, contracts go off the books, come on the books. There's not really any way for us to
Could you give it a
predict the
little bit of
exact amount that would be spent next year.
You're given a buffer.
Correct, yes, sir. That's showing you what we have budgeted in FY 19-20 in that account that we pay that contract from.
All right.
I'm pretty confident I'm answering your question correctly there.
Yeah, it says it was budget for 19, the 19.
Right, that's what's in the budget you approved last month for this particular line item that we're approving here.
Okay, to clarify, is it fair to state that the contract contains a 2% CPI increase?
That's correct, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. On the rates that we pay, the contract, it is in the contract that they're able to raise the rate by that.
So given that it's a contractual 2% CPI increase, I move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Now move into the new business public discussion. Does anybody have anything to bring forth authority? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned.
Wait, we have an executive session.
We do have an executive session. I would like to indulge or ask the indulgence of the council to recess from the municipal authority and move into the municipal hospital authority.
Motion to recess from the municipal authority agenda.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are recessing from the municipal authority and we'll call to order the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority. We do have a consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda of the Memorial Hospital Authority agenda.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We have 2 discussion items.
Discussion item 1, discussion consideration of action to reallocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes in the statement of investment policy guidelines and objectives. We need no action.
No action needed on that. Next discussion item.
Discussion and consideration approving a request for a 12-month extension of hospital authority grant funds awarded to community development in FY 2017-18 for testing for FAA 107 certification and recertification of pilots for the drone purchased with this grant. Mr. Harless.
I was a little surprised to see this on here. I've probably done 12 or 15 grants through the years, and when we've requested for the extension before, it was just signed off by the city manager. So anyway,
Yeah, these are
yes.
required now. They're required to be approved by the council.
I didn't know it was.
I mean, the authority.
It's
You're right, council.
$600 and something or whatever it is. Yes, that is to get time and get the training for Pete Singleton, our backup drone pilot. Greg is one of our pilots on this, and Pete is been training to get the backup on it. And it was just for the testings as outlined in the grant. So we hadn't had a chance to do that yet.
Right, yeah, it's essentially we have to take, I've got to get recertified coming up, and Pete will do his initial certification testing so we can fly commercially.
Wasn't Mr. Singleton trying to juggle this in with his other workloads?
Absolutely, he was, yeah. As a commercial inspector, construction inspection, he's been trying to juggle that, doing the studying through the classes on top of his other duties for community development.
And what's
When do you think
the,
he'll get it done?
I'm sorry?
He's gonna get it done this year?
Yes, sir. He'll have it done here in a few months. Probably less than that. I would say in the next 6 weeks, he should be finished with the training, and then we'll be ready to go to do the testing.
and just to be clear, the amount that you're requesting an extension of is just $695?
625 or 695, something like that. Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions?
Do an extension for just 3 or 4 months, just get this done?
We can.
Well,
It is.
if it's-
I
if
would
it's
caution against putting a time limit just in case with.
I'm sorry, you gave me a time limit of 6 weeks. That's the only reason I put it out there.
Gotcha, understand. That's, our best case scenario is that he'll be ready to go for that period.
When do the new applications open? Is it November 1? Jill? September 1?
It's, I mean, it's only $695, but I don't think any of us like taking it from 17, 18, 18, 19, now going into 19, 20. I think we put a time limit on it, and I think we would do that with any, I think we put a time limit on it, and I think we would do that with anybody else that came through, and I don't think we treat the city any different.
6 months.
We'll get it done.
Motion to
months,
approve
okay
with
with
6
everybody?
months.
Yep, I'm okay with 6, or is everybody else?
Chair to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with 6
Second.
months.
Thank you.
Got a motion to approve with 6 months. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? New business, public discussion. Anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned. I call to order the Midwest City Economic Development Commission. We do have a consent agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. New business, public discussion. Anyone have anything before the authority or the commission? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned. I would like to call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority, or Hospital Authority, I'm sorry. Economic Development Authority, Agenda Commission. I'd like to call it
Move
to
to
order
approve consent agenda.
and
Second.
move to go into executive session.
Move to go into executive session.
No, hang on. We're just doing a consent.
Oh.
on Economic development.
We've already done the consent.
No, we haven't.
We've done economic development, we just.
We're on the authority, sir, not the commission.
We're on the authority. We did the commission.
Okay. All right. Call to order the Economic Development Commission, and we do have a consent agenda.
We just done.
Which is it?
It is the economic.
Okay, the authority, and we do have a consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. We're hereby adjourned. Now, I would like to call to order. Which one is it? I would call to order the Utilities Authority. And we have an executive session, and I take a motion. We've already done that.
No, we haven't.
Utilities, no.
No, we haven't, I promise.
One more
I
more
give
consent agenda,
up.
and we'll be done.
Yeah, this is it. and then-
This is it.
Then we go back to the municipal
Promise.
authority.
Yes.
You promise? Are we still on TV?
Unfortunately.
Utility. Motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda for the Utilities Authority.
Motion to approve the utility authorities.
Second.
We're not approving the authority, we're approving the consent agenda.
Motion to
Get it right.
approve the utility agenda.
A motion and a second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, can we go
Move
into
Motion
executive
to go
session?
into executive session.
Move to resume.
A motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All in
Well,
favor?
we got to read it. We have.
Oh, we have to read it.
Let me read it really quick, and then we can do that.
Read that.
Discussion consideration one, entering the executive session is allowed under under 25 Oklahoma Statute 307B3, discuss the purchase or appraisal of real property, and 2, an open session approving and entering into a contract for sale with Sooner Investment, Inc., trustee or assigns to sell plus or minus .8 acres of land more or less located at 5633 Tinker Diagonal, aka part of the southwest quarter, the northwest quarter, section 9, township 11 north, range 2 west of the Indian Meridian, for approximately $4.30 per square foot, for a total of $150,000, and authorizing the buyer to take all necessary actions or appropriate for amending the zoning and/or platting the described property.
Motion.
Upstairs, downstairs? Wait, move to adjourn.
Motion to go into executive session.
We'll recess upstairs.
We're in executive session.
The city's property needs to be treated the same as everybody else's with high tall grass.
Absolutely.
But he's
Do
pointing
not
out
let
it's
us
not.
off. Do not let us
He says
off.
Mid-America's 4 foot tall.
I've already talked to Mike.
Mid-America